it. We'll make that available to everybody next week. As I said, we've got everybody started on mute, but we want to give everyone options to participate. We find that the discussion and everything is just much richer, so to speak, if you all jump in. And you know, this is informal. We have a structured presentation here, but we really want everybody to feel free to interact. So a couple of ways you guys can do that. You can use the chat button at the bottom. Send those chat messages to Jason Funderburg, and that way we will work them into the presentation as we can. Or if there's a place where there's a little bit of a lull, or it seems like an appropriate place to interject a comment, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. Take a chance and do that, and we'd love to hear from you. Lastly, if we don't get to every question here, we will make sure that we address them afterwards and that everybody will get their questions answered. So for our scholars, before we turn this over to Tina, I just want to say, in terms of you guys being on here tonight, and you guys in terms of interacting and asking questions, we are all pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone. Me in particular, putting on these webinars, it's been a real learning experience. So I want you guys to please feel free to do the same. You know, we're all learning as we go along. And again, we don't want this to be formal. We want to hear from you guys. So thanks for joining us. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tina. Tina, I'm going to mute myself and the stage is yours now.
Okay. Thank you, Lindsay. Welcome, everybody. We are very excited for today and have been looking forward to it for weeks. We're so glad to have so many of our scholars with us, our trustees, friends of the trust, and certainly this amazing panel that you're going to hear from shortly. My name is Tina Greger, and I have the distinct honor of being the chairwoman of the JWP Caddie Scholarship Trust. We have a great webinar planned for our scholars today, and I promised to let you hear from our amazing panel shortly. But first, I want to spend a few minutes to explain how we got here, why the Empower program, and introduce a few special people. The JWP Caddie Scholarship has been giving scholarships to deserving caddies, hardworking caddies, to achieve a college education since 1958. Our goal to make a college education more affordable for caddies is a great and worthy mission. But over the last few years or so, we've wanted to answer the call to do more. Our scholars are uniquely talented individuals. They are bright, hardworking. I shouldn't say they, I should say you. You are bright, hardworking, intuitive. You have interacted with a wide range of people during your time looping. Some demanding, some more laid back. You've needed to make quick decisions and you are accountable for your mistakes. Caddying has taught you way more than yardages and reads. We believe our scholars are taking ownership in their future. And for that reason, and for so many more, the Trust created a program to build on specifically what you are already doing and help maximize your potential, as well as maximize our investment in you. The Empower program will provide various trainings, workshops, webinars, some formal and some informal. Our initiatives will range in size and scope, some delivered to groups like today, while others geared very specifically to your goals through one-to-one mentoring. Today is our third webinar, and quite frankly, this event is the one that captures and highlights the basic tenets and objectives of the Empower program. This is all geared to help you achieve your educational, career, and personal goals. We are proud of these added benefits, and we trust that you, our scholars, will take advantage. As we planned for today, it was said multiple times by multiple people that we wished a program like this would have been offered to us earlier in our lives. These insights are priceless. Quite frankly, the messages remain relevant and will be beneficial to all of us, no matter what stage we're in and what success we have achieved. Scholars, self-reflect, listen today, take notes, participate. You have my word, this will benefit you. Thank you to everyone who has organized today and planned, for all that we're doing, especially Buddy Aiken and to Lindsay Myers. Thank you to GAP, led by Mark Peterson, for supporting all that we do. I would like to express a huge thank you to our host and sponsor, the Siegfried Group. We have with us today Megan Cartnell, Associate Director, and Nick Francani, Managing Director. Back before the pandemic, we met with Nick and other members from the Siegfried Group and started planning a leadership conference for our scholars. Certainly would have looked very different than what we're doing here today. We would have been in person. And I have to say, I left that first meeting very inspired, more certain that we're moving in the right direction at the Trust than probably I had been prior to that meeting. I was very excited to have Siegfried's support and interest in the work that we're doing here at the Trust. But admittedly, I was a bit confused after the meeting as well. My initial understanding was that the Siegfried Group was an accounting firm of sorts, and yet they genuinely wanted to help us with our youth leadership conference, which was going to take resources and time and planning. At first, it appeared unrelated to the work that they're doing and their mission. Then I looked more closely at their website, which you'll learn today I should have done before the meeting. And their mission states, "We help people transform themselves into better leaders to exponentially improve their lives." I will also admit that after the meeting, I turned to Buddy and said, "I'd like to work for them someday." So your commitment to youth and leadership development is abundantly clear. We're so happy that Buddy connected the Trust to us and our shared values, not to mention our love for golf. We are lucky to have you as a partner, and we're extremely happy and grateful for all that you're doing. Finally, Megan, I'd like to pass it along to you. Again, Megan is the Associate Director and serves as a leadership advisor for financial executives at Siegfried. Her role is multi-layered, leading business development and recruiting efforts. Megan, thank you for joining us and telling us a bit more about Siegfried and sharing your passionate commitment to helping people.
Thank you, Tina. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you, Tina. What a beautiful introduction. I feel so honored to be here today with all of you. As Tina said, of course, we would much prefer to be face-to-face, but I really appreciate all of the cameras that have been turned on. I think that it's really nice being able to see faces and reactions. And with that, I would encourage any participation throughout today. There will be an opportunity to ask questions, but also, you know, in acknowledgement, if something is resonating, you can always see that on someone's face. So remember that, and we're happy to interact as we go along. So join me here. I'm going to start by sharing my screen and telling you a little bit about our firm. I really appreciated Tina's introduction because she nailed it. I have a hard time sometimes articulating to not really our clients, but to the people in my life about the Siegfried Group. We are a national CPA firm. Most of the professionals that work for us after college, they go out and they work in public accounting. The big four audit firms are traditionally where our professionals start, which for anybody that's in college, wonderful start to your career. It really builds a foundation of skills. But many accountants don't want to stay in audit forever. So they turn to us. What we're able to offer these professionals is what I would think is similar to almost like a medical residency. They come to us and we have a big client base of the Fortune 1000. We're working with about 200 of them, and we can offer an experience for them to try out different areas of accounting, and they work on projects in many different areas across many different industries. And when you're in your mid-20s and you are smart and willing to roll your arms up and get the work done, it's a great experience to be able to have and work for large organizations and understand what you like and what you don't like. So they come to us thinking that they're going to have this amazing accounting experience, and what they don't realize often until we meet them is that our firm has two pillars. We have talent delivery, which is what I've just described, the opportunity for strong CPAs to jump into teams that need extra support and bandwidth or work on really exciting accounting projects. And we also have leadership advisory. So as Tina said, our firm strives to help people transform themselves into better leaders, which will exponentially improve their lives. We have two pillars to our firm. One of them brings revenue, and one of them does not, but we treat them equally. And we do that because we know that the synergy of them together is what's bringing transformation for people. So as Tina described, we work with our clients, we help them really identify what they want to do, why they want to do it, and then oftentimes opportunities arise for them to use our talent delivery services to get their projects done. We talk a lot about exponential growth. We want to transform people's lives, but what does that mean? So I want to have you look at this graph for a minute and think about your own life. We talk about what success is, and I think that everyone here would say, of course I want to be successful. I want to have, I want to have lots of things in my life, and everyone defines success differently. And so the way we define success is through freedoms. And I'm sure that you can all identify with some of the things here on the list of freedoms. An acknowledgement if something there is resonating with you. And I would think too that, we all don't want just one of these freedoms, but, defining success is having a combination of all of these freedoms, and many of them go together. So if we're thinking about golf, we're thinking about, wanting to have the time to play golf, it takes a couple of hours. Some of the nicest courses, require a decent amount of money to be able to go out and play and to get a great caddy too. Geography, we have to be in the places where we want to be able to play. Creating relationships with the people that we want to be playing with. So I'm sure you understand at this point, there are a lot of freedoms that we want to have in our lives. Well, how do the most successful people that we know get to those places? So what we would say here at the Siegfried Group is that the focus on leadership is not just about the management of others and becoming a CFO and how can I become the guy in the corner office, or for me, the woman in the corner office. But it's really breaking it down and thinking, okay, I want to be successful. What does that mean? Leadership. Well, what does that mean? It means focusing on yourself as an individual. And we would break it down to focusing on your character ethic. So I like to think about character ethic being commitment and drive, authenticity, honesty. There are going to be a lot of different words that are going to describe what good character is. And character builds leaders. Character are the building blocks to creating a great leader. And it's really your leadership that is going to create success in your life. So as Tina said, we are a firm that goes beyond accounting and finance projects. While we are very happy to support in those areas, what means the most to us is really helping people focus on their leadership, focus on those individual building blocks that can create success and freedom in their lives. I'm sure you all have an idea of, where you want to be one day. And we say that one of the things that's great to kind of help you in that way, and I think that it goes along with the theme of mentorship that I'm going to get to in a minute, is creating an understanding with yourself about where you are now. Everyone has character ethic that they could describe who they are now. And we all have this idea of who we want to be one day. I mean, I still have an idea of who I want to be one day, and Nick has an idea of who he wants to be one day. And while that may change, we understand those two places. And what we're doing here today and the conversation that we're having, we want to create some tension on the line. And creating some tension on the line is going to help us understand what we need to do, what relationships we want to build, and how we're going to get ourselves from where we are today to where we want to be. A big part of that is our mindset. We can pay attention to all of these wonderful things. We can be leaders, but there are going to be bumps in the road. There's no better example of that than 2020. I would say that 2020 has been just a series of bumps in the road, and we've had to adapt. And the way I believe you are successful is by not always being transformative, but paying attention to your mindset, giving yourself a little grace when you need to, holding yourself accountable when you need to. So this is how we define mindset. We're not the only ones that define it this way, but I think it's a really great way of looking at life. So Rob Siegfried, an avid golfer, would say that in a golf round, and I relate to this, I'm sure many of you would, you fall in all of these mindsets over and over and over. You can be transformative, first tee, straight down the fairway, feeling really great. You know, there are always going to be shots that lead you in failure, and then many that are in between for you. Mindset is important because you need to be striving to have that transformative mindset and not getting stuck in what feels good, like stepping outside of your comfort zone. But I just think that the most important thing about it is paying attention to it. Because if we pay attention to how we're feeling, we can help ourselves pay closer attention to, you know, what kind of character we're showing during those times. We all, like I said, we all go through these bumps. 2020 has been an interesting one, but you don't always have to be transformative, but you can continue striving for it. One of the things that I think is most important in life is just having dreams, because it's one thing to have 5-year, 10-year, 20-year goals, like I said, understanding now to where you want to be, but just dreaming big and allowing yourself to kind of be that, almost with a child, you know, just throw it all out there. Say, I want to go to Mars, I want to go to the moon, and creating these big dreams, and then we can work together and break them down, and you can figure out what you need to do to get there. But I think what a lot of people forget is that it's great to dream big. It helps your mind think big. And while we might not be going to Mars, or, you know, not yet, I continue to be impressed with what Elon Musk is able to do. But, you know, we might not be there yet, but being able to conceptualize those things is really important. So at our firm, really in the past 18 months or so, we've been talking a lot about two concepts that I think really resonate with this group and the topic of mentorship. Dreams, dreaming really big, and then angels. Not in a religious sense, but just in a way of paying attention to the people in your life that help you. And so we would define angels and the importance of angels as meaningful relationships that help you transform yourself into a better individual leader. And it's this transformation that helps you improve your life. And I think that mentors and mentorship, these people tend to be angels in our lives. I put the word mentorship in this presentation on purpose because it makes me think more about the relationship and what's actually happening than just the person that is the mentor. So professional relationship, I would even say that it doesn't exclusively have to be a professional relationship, but someone who guides someone, and it's in personal, it's in professional growth. There are a lot of different things that can happen under this umbrella of mentorship. And I want to encourage you today to also think about mentorship as this umbrella term and not defining it to just one individual or not defining it to one specific way of occurring. So I think that Empower is doing amazing work. I love how passionate they are about creating an opportunity to connect mentors and mentees. The power there is amazing. But I also would encourage you, as we're thinking about, you know, mentorship, and in a minute we're going to go into some things that you can pay attention to and focus on to create a strong mentor-mentee relationship, but not exclusively thinking about one person or one type of one type of relationship being the example of how it has to go. Because what we know is that no two relationships are the same, nor are we always going to click with someone or stay in touch with them forever. So we want to keep in mind that these things are always evolving, and in that, kind of thinking about the umbrella term, I think, can be really beneficial. You all will learn a little bit more of the details around connecting with a mentor. And I just want to share a couple of tips and tricks that I think are important. Tips, tricks, mindset around maximizing the mentor relationship. Most of all, I think if you walk away with anything right now, it would hopefully be just demonstrating initiative in managing the relationship. The most important thing, and I know that for people that I have both been a mentee with or been in the mentor role, investment in the relationship is paramount. Showing someone that you care and that you are invested goes a really long way. So all of these other things are going to fall under that thought, but they speak for themselves, but I am going to walk through them with you. Being authentic and open. Authenticity comes back to a character ethic word. So paying attention to that, paying attention to being authentic, being your true self. We're all still finding ourselves. It's okay to waver an opinion or read something and say, wow, I'm more informed on that subject now. I may think differently. But being your authentic self is really important, and being open about who you are and why you're thinking that way. Listening. The second most important thing you take away today is listening. My daughter is in first grade, and I think her teacher must say 10 times a day, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And while I find that to be very cheesy, it's true. I think that listening and paying attention to the rocks and the pebbles, so the big things that people say, but also just paying attention to kind of the little comments that they have along the way, because I think that it adds a lot of insight into understanding who they are. Having patient urgency. Understanding that relationships take time is really important. We are not going to go from 0 to 100. You're not going to be, you don't expect to, on a first date, be engaged on the next date. You're not jumping ahead too quickly. And I think that you want to demonstrate some initiative in the relationship, and that's the urgency piece. But you also want to have patience and let relationships develop. So you're going to need to read the room, and you're going to have to just kind of see how things are going. Should I be putting in a little bit more effort now? Should I be reaching out? I haven't heard from this person in a little while. But also not overly eager, because we're, recognizing that everyone has a lot on their plate and things are going on. So you're going to have to use a lot of judgment. And I think that patient urgency is a great way to think about the judgment that you're using. Mentorship is not mentorship if feedback is not, a part of the conversation. So recognizing that you're going to receive and you're going to hear feedback, and you're going to engage in a conversation that might be a little bit uncomfortable. And that's okay, because I think change comes when we step out of our comfort zone. But receive feedback, acknowledge it, sit with it, think about it later, and come back to it. I think that when we first hear feedback, we don't always hear it the same as when we're sitting with it and reflecting on it later. So just be open to feedback as you get it. And also know that it's, that's coming from one person's opinion too. So all of it, incredibly valuable feedback is going to come your way. And it's about how you accept it and react to it, to how it can impact you, good and bad. I think that defining specific goals can be a really beneficial part of the mentor relationship. again, I think that you don't want to be overly eager and be setting up goals and saying, you know, you're my mentor, you're supposed to help me achieve this. Like, be an individual leader, take individual accountability, but it's also a really great idea to share what you're trying to get out of it. Create, you know, some shared expectations, and reflect on the growth that has happened. Acknowledge the growth that has happened. I think that creates energy in the relationship as well. And that kind of goes with the last one. Share some of your insights and your growth along the way. I think that that can be a really beneficial thing to do with your mentor. And then one of the biggest things that I think gets lost in mentor relationships is remembering that it's not a one-way street. This is not a mentor who is signing up to just change your life. This is a mentor who's entering a personal relationship, and they're going to get to know you and you're going to get to know them. And it's just about developing and nurturing that relationship. It's a mentorship because they have a lot to teach you and a lot of insights that can be really beneficial to your growth. However, you have to remember that there are probably things that you can be teaching them as well, and it goes both ways. So with that, I think that paying attention and being interested in the other person, this isn't just mentor relationships, this is just how you build relationships with people that you know, can be strong and long lasting. Be interested and interesting. We talk, Nick would be able to confirm, we talk a lot about the concept of being relevant and compelling at our firm. So you want to be relevant, you want to connect with them on things that matter to them, but you also want to be compelling, and you want them to find you interesting. Sometimes it takes a little thought and it takes a little more effort. So be interested and interesting. Show some interest in things that they may have brought up. If you're talking about a topic, if they bring up a topic that you're not all that well versed in, maybe you have a couple extra minutes and you read a couple of articles or listen to a podcast about it. It's really helpful to be able to show that you're interested in whatever it is that you know, they are interested in. It's also okay to not share the same thought about it, but I always think that there's nothing to lose by informing yourself and learning a little bit more about whatever topic. They wouldn't have brought it up if it wasn't something that they cared about. With that, building trust and valuing differences. Some topics are going to come up and you might not agree on them, but I haven't met anyone that I respect, even though we didn't agree, that we couldn't still have a productive conversation. Engage in a conversation, but be really mindful, especially during these times, probably more than ever, that you want to value differences and you want to build trust with these people. I think that we get lost in that a little bit because we jump and we judge. And so just seeking to understand is the most important thing that we can do when we enter relationships. I think the third most important thing that you could take away today, for us to create a successful mentor relationship, is if you say you're going to do something, to follow through and do it. If you don't think you're going to follow through, please be honest at the onset of that conversation, and that's okay too. If there's something they say, hey, you know, you should go try this. I think that, you know, read this book or try this new skill, or, you know, you should connect with this person over here because, you know, I think they could really help you. If you don't plan on doing it, figure out, you know, might be a little uncomfortable, but figure out a way to, you know, bring that up at the beginning. I think that you lose a lot of credibility, and it doesn't advance a relationship if you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it. Follow through can be very important, and honesty can be really important. So if you intended on doing it, you just haven't gotten around to it yet, or something got in the way, be proactive and have a conversation too. You know, you mentioned that this would be really great for me to try. I'm very interested in giving it a try. I haven't been able to do that yet, or the circumstances haven't allowed me to do that yet. Just want to let you know that I'm still pretty interested. Or I've given it some thought it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. So I'm actually not going to go down that route. And this is why. Be thoughtful around your approach to following through and then providing feedback. Yes, no, this is what I learned. I think that, again, you're fostering a relationship, and these people want to see you succeed. So there might be sometimes at the onset, a mentor could be really excited and be giving lots of advice, and they might be throwing darts at the board, and they want to see what you say, you know, what really resonates with you. If you say yes, 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 there also might be a problem where you don't have enough time to do all those things. So try and, you know, be thoughtful around those things at the onset. It's going to save you a lot of grief later, because there's nothing worse than going to your next catch up and thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't do any of that. And it can keep you up at night. And express gratitude. I think that the mentors that you're going to be connected with are going to be amazing people. They wouldn't be putting up their hands for this if they were not. But they're also probably the same people that have a lot of people asking for their time. And you are clearly important and you are deserving of their time, but also appreciate the time that you have with them. I have heard examples where, and this kind of goes back to, you know, the previous slide about making sure that you're kind of using the good judgment with how much time you're asking for someone and how much time you're giving back. Expressing gratitude along the way is really important. So there are going to be times where you know, you may get some of their time, and when you're talking, you're like, wow, you haven't even had time to spend with your family lately. You know, I just want to, you know, let you know that I really appreciate, you know, meeting up today, because I can hear from what you're saying that you're very busy. So just expressing that gratitude. If you've had insights or you've had a thought about them, you know, they gave you great advice and you went and tried something, I think that the power of a text message is something that sometimes is overlooked. If you've created a relationship and you know, you said, hey, you know, I have your number, like, would you mind if I texted you sometime? Sending someone a quick text can say, yeah, you know what, I tried this, and it was great, it went over really well, or, you know, I worded something the way you mentioned might be, you know, really useful, and yeah, it was great. So being able to share that appreciation and expressing the gratitude doesn't always have to be through the words thank you. You can show it in other little ways. So don't text them all day and all night, but again, that judgment can be a big part. And so gonna wrap up by just a couple of points, and I think that I've brought them up a little bit so far, but just keeping in mind that the mentor's value should not be overestimated, and not going in thinking that because you have been connected to someone who has a really successful career that that person owes you something. Go in and invest in the relationship, build the relationship for all the right reasons, and it will be fruitful. But do not expect you're going to get the corner office, you know, from the get-go or something like that. So go in and just invest in a relationship, and it will develop in a very natural way. But don't try and ask for too much. Pay attention to formal and informal mentors. So Empower is going to set you up with a formal mentor, but also just paying attention in your life to where there might be informal mentors, or there might be people that you can learn from. They may be offering, you know, a type of mentorship to you that is right for your time of life. And I think that, again, it comes back to recognizing who are these angels in your life, and not being afraid to, if you're having a conversation with someone, say, hey, you know what? I really appreciated our conversation. I would love to do this again. I have a mentor, but, you know, you sort of are feeling like a mentor to me. How would you feel about, you know, connecting more regularly? A lot of people are flattered to hear those kinds of comments. Naming the conversation as such can help people think of you in a different way. And I think that there's not much to lose. But if you're going in and trying to foster the relationship, a lot of people are going to be really willing to give you a bit of mentorship. And in that same realm, you don't have to have one mentor. I was reading an article that called it modern mentoring, but I don't know what you want to call it. It's not important. I think that recognizing that there are going to be multiple people in your life who are going to offer different types of mentorship. I don't think that you ever really need to have just one mentor. You're going to have mentors that offer you. I have mentors in my life that offer me great professional advice. I have mentors in my life that have had a similar journey than me. I have a mentor that, you know, I kind of think of her as like a parenting mentor because her kids are older than mine, and she's been able to offer a lot of, you know, advice that I have found quite useful. So they're going to be, you are multidimensional. And remembering that your mentorship relationships can be really multidimensional as well, can be important. So that was a lot of talking from me, and you know, I appreciate everyone still having their cameras on and being attentive listeners. I hope that it was useful in some of the things that I think are useful as you're embarking on a new mentorship relationship and kind of recognizing some of those relationships in your life. But this, the main part of this presentation that I think is going to be the most powerful is the panel discussion. And so I'm going to pass this back to Tina and stop my screen share so we can all see one another a little bit better. And let Tina take it away to our panel.
Megan, thank you so much. That was powerful, and so many important tips and things to think about. I know when I was listening, I was thinking of different mentors in my life and individuals that I per se wouldn't, you know, coin as mentors now, but after hearing what you had to say, now thinking of them a little differently. So thank you very much. I do have the pleasure to introduce Mark Vey. Mark will be our moderator today and help us manage our conversation in such a way to get the most from this discussion. We're very lucky, Mark, to have you here with us. You, for more than 20 years, I believe, have been a leadership development coach, specializing in helping executives develop executive presence and building personal brand and maximizing their impact. You work in top-tier companies all around the globe. Your accomplishments are countless and your reputation impeccable. I spoke to Mark the other day for just the first time. Buddy introduced me, and it was abundantly clear during our conversation how genuine you are in your passion to help people. It was a great conversation, and it caused me to get more and more excited about today and how you're going to help us with this presentation and panel. So thank you in advance. And again, you know, we'll let you take it from here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tina. Really kind words. And, you know, when Buddy told me about this opportunity, I jumped at it, because I think helping young people at this early stage in their careers and giving them any kind of insights is something that I'm passionate about. I've been involved with the JCI of the UN for a number of years now, and myself and a colleague, we've been partly helping with their fundraising, but also traveling around the world to some of their events. And we've done workshops in some of the most far-flung places, even Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. So it's something helping young people is something I'm really passionate about. I think on the professional side, I think what's really interesting for me is that I've worked, as you said, for more than 20 years with executives all around the world. And I think one of the most common refrains I hear from some even senior execs is that, oh crikey, I wish I'd known some of these things 20 years ago. They would have shortcutted my path to success. So I think what excites me about this next session and the panel we have is that I think, first of all, we've got some fantastic people and really experienced people on that panel. People with wonderful stories to tell, and I'm sure the scholars are going to get some really, really great insights from this next session that I think are going to build on Megan's presentation, which I thought was brilliant, and I thought captured some really fantastic points. So before we dive into content, please allow me to introduce the panel, and in no particular order. We have John Lawton, who is the CEO of BLBB Advisors. John holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Bucknell University. He's been with BLBB since '96, and prior to that he worked as a traffic engineer and served for 4 years in the United States Army. He's an active board member or ambassador on several charities and is passionate about community service. Then we have Kate Norman, and Kate is SVP and Chief Risk Officer for Exelon's generation business. Kate has been with the company for 16 years, and in that time she's held several roles, including senior trading positions within Constellation, and she even had a 2-year stint in my hometown in London, supporting the company's international coal and freight business. Kate holds an MBA from Duke University and also an AB in economics from Harvard. She's a member of the Baltimore CC, and she's actively involved in several community organizations and lots of activities. And some of these include the Urban Alliance, Civics Works, and the Women United Advisory Board of the United Way. So lots of great experience there. Then I'll turn to Mike Mcdermott. And Mike is president and CEO of Cathmere Capital Management, which provides wealth management services to a wide variety of individuals and organizations. And Mike actually founded the company in 2004 and has since spent his entire 24-year career in wealth management since he graduated from St. Joseph's University, where he was a member of the varsity golf team and has had and continues to be a highly successful amateur in the game, which I'm sure many of you will be aware of. Michael also caddied at Lanark from 89 to 97, and he's one of 2 ex-caddies that we have on the panel. So it'd be really great to get their experience of being a caddy and what's it like, you know, working that informal relationship that Megan talked about. Now, in terms of community service, Michael has always been actively involved in community service and giving back to the game. And he's currently involved with a number of organizations. Community Backstop, he's on the board of the Cobbs Creek Restoration and Educational Foundation, and he's a member of the St. Joseph's Athletics Advisory Board. So welcome, Michael, and looking forward to chatting further. Then we have Bill Ruby, who's an analyst and trader with Corbin Capital Partners in Philadelphia, and he's been with the company for 7 years. He joined Corbin after graduating from Drexel University, where he was a member of the varsity golf team. And Bill is a Platt alum, and he caddied at Squires Golf Club during high school and college. And so I'm sure you'll be aware of Bill, and he's very active in the community, and he supports the TGR Foundation as an Earl Woods mentor, and he also continues to be very active in supporting the JWP Trust. So, and last but no means least, Megan, who has magically morphed from presenter to panelist. And Megan, she's given you, Tina's given you some bit of background about her, but just let me tell you a little bit more about Megan. Megan is obviously part of the Siegfried Group and a leadership advisor for financial executives. She leads a lot of their business development and recruitment efforts, both in the Philadelphia and Detroit markets, as well as their national sales operation team. So big job there. She holds a bachelor's and a master's from the University of Dayton, and her career actually started in public service, and it's taken her to work abroad as far afield as South Korea and Australia. Megan's got a passionate commitment to helping people be more thoughtful and reflective about what is important to them, and she's a devoted member of her community and serves as a board member for the Junior Achievements Delaware and Best Buddies Pennsylvania. So huge welcome to everyone, and really lovely to be working with you all. I think for me, I guess one of the key reasons that people seek out mentors, particularly in the early stage of their careers, is for career guidance and for help with identifying career paths. And I wonder if I could open this up and ask Michael, first of all. Michael, I know you had some really great advice at an early stage of your career, and particularly as you were a caddy as well. So I wonder if you could share your story with us, please.
Thanks, Mark. And it's great, the scholars that are on. Congratulations, all of you too. It's a great honor that you all are doing a lot right to be involved in this. And just keep in mind that life's about small wins, and just keep doing what you're doing. So we're all proud of you, and it's a pleasure to be here talking to you. So Mark, to your question, yeah, when I was caddying at Lanark, one of the things I did focus on was the fact that I had a chance to spend time with all of these successful individuals. Some were corporate executives, some were entrepreneurs. It ran the gamut. And so I never hesitated to the people that I got close to the people that were looking to, that I was caddying for. I never hesitated to ask them, what do you think, if you were me, what would you do? If you were me and your view of the world, the skills that I have, the person that you know, what do you think I would be good at? And what was interesting, Mark, as I shared this with you, is that I kept getting the same answer, which was really reassuring. But I think that without asking that, without taking the initiative, and I certainly didn't get to the first tee and ask every person I knew, every person there, but there was a select group of a dozen people that knew me better. And I think that that was something that really set a path for me, was sort of the first area of mentorship for me, which was simply the confidence to simply ask someone that I already looked up to for their advice. And then suddenly I had great clarity from getting the same answer over and over again. And that was really, really, really beneficial to me very early on in that process.
Mm-hmm. And where did that take you, Michael, in terms of direction?
So the answer is I was always a good student. I always, and I had this golf thing that was within my life and I was doing better at. And so one of the things that they told me is that there's a whole world of people that can use both in their life and their career. And that didn't narrow the field down. It just narrowed down the type of career. So that could have meant benefits. It could have meant insurance. It could have meant investment management and a number of other fields. But what a lot of them told me, it was interesting, and I remember these conversations vividly, is, well, you should try to be like Jay Siegel. Well, you should try to be like Buddy Marucci or Gordon Brewer, or names that many people on this call obviously know. And that seemed like an absolute moonshot at the time, and certainly to this day remains that, but at least gave me a vision. And so what I did is I really took that advice, and it steered me into a career. There were corporate jobs that I could have taken, but it would not have been true to myself, and it would not have been true to, I think, a great vision that these people helped me to paint for my future. And it was really some of the best advice. And I had a father who worked for a big corporation his entire life, and his advice was the same thing. He said, Michael, try to be entrepreneurial, you have a unique knack for this game of golf, and you're a smart and personable person. So see if you can blend this together. And I chose a business that's very difficult to break into. So it was by no means an easy process. It took me a long, long time. But that advice was really, sort of landed me in the direction that my life ultimately took.
What a great story. And I guess what leaps out for me is that piece about having the courage to ask those questions and push yourself. I've heard an expression which is, because I was trying to think myself into the mind of a caddy, and part of the job is to be there to serve someone else. But how does one, I'd like to open it up to the panel, how does one actually work that informal relationship so that you can strike up the conversation and make the most of that mentorship? I've heard that expression, keep up and shut up. Is apparently something that a lot of caddies are told. So I'm just curious, from anyone on the panel, how do you strike that balance between being there for them as a great caddy, but at the same time making the most of the opportunity? Anyone want to chip in on that one? Billy, I know you were a caddy as well. It'd be great to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it involves finding common ground with the person, right? Every time you end up with someone, it's a great opportunity for you. The person can either hate your guts, tell you to keep up and shut up, or they can, find a common ground with you, whether it be you went to the same high school, you both went to Catholic high school, you want to go into the same field, maybe there's something that you have in common with that person. And then from there, you develop a casual relationship. And then that casual relationship will most likely turn into something more, where they will open up about their job And then that can be an opportunity for you to ask questions and you to get to the point where you can drive the conversation to where you want it to go, which includes career advice for you, right? And then as a caddy, that's the great opportunity you have, especially being at clubs in Philadelphia, where the private network is so large here, and you have the opportunity to meet so many successful people, not only members of your club, but then also their friends, right? The guests that they bring. And that's huge, right? Because you're going to see a wide variety of industries here in Philadelphia, everything from Comcast to, the University of Pennsylvania hospital system. So it's almost impossible to find something that you may not be interested in, and then using that network to branch out.
Okay. Brilliant.
Mark, one of the things I was going to say is that it's so important, that first impression. When you first meet the person that you're going to work for the next 4 hours, you look at them, you shake their hand, you show confidence. And then once you show the initial confidence, it's so important to make sure that they understand how much you care about them, right? So my mentor in life taught me something very important. He told me that people want to know how much you care before they care about how much you know. So an example where you are, a first-time caddy, maybe you don't have that look of confidence, you're very nervous, but if you can make that person or people who you're caddying for understand how much you're going to care about them the next 4 hours, your round of golf will go so much better. And it doesn't matter if you can't read the greens or you can't do certain things. If that person knows how much you care, they will completely care for you during that round.
Amazing, yeah. And I think what fascinates me about that is there's something, in the work that I do, one of the things I'm always encouraging people to think about is be really super intentional about how you show up. What's the attitude that you bring into any situation? What is that? I think Megan talked about mindset. What is that mindset that if I'm going to be a great caddy and make the most of that opportunity, what is that mindset that I need to bring onto that golf course to enable me to really connect with someone and build that relationship? I think that's such a great point about care, John. Billy, I know you had a great story about early career guidance, and I know we're going to move on from the kind of early career to broaden this out to think about mentorship more generally. But I was really struck by your story as well when we spoke the other day.
Yeah. So I caddied at Squires, and I met a gentleman who helped me out a lot and helping me understand how to move on with my career. So I went to Drexel for biology, and I'm now a trader in New York and Wall Street, and that doesn't necessarily make sense, and it's not a direct, clear path, right? So how do you get there, right? I had a co-op at Johnson & Johnson that I hated. I went to work every day for 6 months and didn't like the job, period, right? So I was entering my senior year. I couldn't change my major because the NCAA would have had a problem with my degree completion. So in order to play golf, I had to stay in my major. And then you say, how do I sell myself? How do I get to a career? And then what is the career that I want to go into, right? And that involved a lot of meetings with Squires members. That involved a lot of conversations with Paul, who I caddied for. And he helped me understand the specific traits about my personality, what careers maybe made sense with them, and then who I could talk to that he knew in that Rolodex where I could get the career advice that I wanted. And then he also suggested, it's funny because I think Megan mentioned it, you should read these books. He suggested to me to read a lot of books from entrepreneurs. And one book that always stuck with me, which was actually made a movie recently, so you don't have to read the book, is the Michael Keaton movie on the founder of McDonald's, Ray Kroc. His biography, Grind It Out, he talks about how he didn't find any success until he was 50 years old, right? Like there's no straight path. Your dream job is not what you get at 22, right? And I wasn't doing my dream job, but I took mentorship over money, and it became, a great career path. And it didn't look good or great or anything. It wasn't a big name company, but if you go about things the right way and you take advice from people and they connect you to the right, you'll get there. It's just sometimes it's not a straight path, right? And it's uncomfortable and you're outside of your comfort zone. And Paul was great, and I would have 100% failed without it, because at that age you are unaware of how the real world works. The education system doesn't really teach you career advancement. It teaches you the skills that you need to move forward, but it doesn't teach you the game, right, of getting to your dream job, right? And a mentor fills that gap for you. And caddying provided that for me. That's why I find it to be so important.
Fantastic. Well, what a great story. What a great journey. My goodness. And what impact. I guess for me, I mean, in terms of opening it out just a little bit to think about mentorship more broadly, Kate, I know you had a couple of great examples. First of all, just being a mentee and some of the impact that had for you in the workplace. I wonder if you could share one of those with us.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mark. I really enjoyed listening at the beginning to some of Megan's presentation because she hit upon so many of the things I've learned through successful relationships that I've had with mentors of mine. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really like taught me really to be accountable to myself in following through on some of the things I like to do to kind of develop my career. An early experience I had with a mentor was with a woman who took me to lunch, and she wanted to really talk to me about how important it was to continue to build out your network. And so during that lunch, she said, I'm going to expect that you will select 5 people in our company that you think it's important to get to know. You need to email me those people, and after you've had lunch with them or you've had a meeting with them, I need you to report back that you've done so. So I remember thinking, this woman was quite powerful. She was one of those people that you got to do what she says because she just is kind of in charge like that. And it's uncomfortable, but I knew she would hold me to a level of these better be people that I didn't already know, but they would be, big leaps for me. So I went ahead and reached out to these folks. And one of the things I would also say is, when you reach out and to kind of try to learn from people, it's kind of hard for people to really say no most of the time. One of the people I reached out to, I never really did catch up with, and I, picked a different name. So it does happen, but people really do want to help. And so when I stepped away from that experience, it was such a rewarding experience, and it kind of made it easier for me to continue to do these things because it didn't seem so daunting the next time. But what it really taught me was, how to be accountable to some of the advice that I get, because I didn't necessarily want to do what she said, but I kind of knew I had to. So then in future times when I'm working with a mentor or getting some advice, if my first reaction is that I don't really feel like doing that, I don't know that that's going to be very, very helpful, I try to make myself actually do it and follow up, because I find that often it actually surprisingly works quite well. And if it doesn't, then I've learned something else about myself or why it didn't work, or, that type of avenue. So the accountability, I think, is a really important step when kind of working with someone who's trying to help.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I guess there's that whole question around choosing a mentor. How does one, what are some good guiding principles there? How do you go about choosing the right mentor? Open it up to anyone.
I think it's probably, I'll just chime. I think it's probably first someone that you have a high degree of respect, or even maybe envision that's where you'd love to be someday. And it doesn't even have to be the same field, but I think if you look at someone and they're doing all the things that you look ahead 20 years from now or 30 years from now and say, that's what I want to do. People say it all the time, the easiest way to succeed in life is find someone who did it before you and copy them. So, sometimes to overcomplicate it, right? If you want a mentor, go find someone that you want to be them in 20 years and ask them how they did it and try to follow their playbook.
Any other thoughts around that from other people? How did you go about choosing mentors? Any tips there for our scholars?
Go ahead.
You can go ahead.
I've had a couple of times where people have suggested that I reach out to someone similar to the way Kate said, but this is probably more on the personal side. So there may have been people that were my parents' friends, or they were neighbors, or we just knew them in a kind of a random way, friend of a friend. And to Michael's point, I knew and I recognized that I had a lot to learn from these people, but it was going to be a little bit uncomfortable. And so for me, I did step out of my comfort zone, but I also I named it and I said, I would really, I could use some mentorship and this is why. And I recognize something in you, and that kind of like point of flattery, I think, I can just explain to them why I thought that they would be a good mentor, and what I thought that I could, what I thought I could bring to the table too. And I would often describe that as, I'm in this place and, this is how I've navigated, and kind of just tee it up a little bit, get them thinking about, my situation and, how we could get together. So you also have to kind of find people who are willing, but like Kate said, I think that there are a lot of people who are more than willing and, if anything, actually flattered to. So it's just envisioning it, that mentorship as such.
Yeah, thank you. Kate, you were going to say.
I just wanted to build upon another thing that Megan had mentioned in the beginning about, taking little bits of advice along the way. And one thing that's also been successful for me is when I do observe somebody that I respect really handling a situation in a really strategic way, or just presenting themselves very well, or just something that I admire, I've often found it's really kind of a neat thing to take the time to go up to them and say, hey, I noticed, I really impressed me when you did this. Sometimes I'll even make it humorous and say, teach me how to do it, but just the sheer act of trying to recognize someone else for something you admire usually lends itself to a neat conversation. And there's generally just a couple of neat tidbits that you can pick up along the way. So not even something that needs to be an ongoing relationship, but just something where you connect for a couple of moments and get some neat insights.
I had one more thing, that relationships often don't start with roses, right? So most of the time, if someone critiques you, that means they care enough to tell you that you're doing something wrong, right? And that can be, challenging. I'm still fairly young too, and being critiqued is uncomfortable. But most of the time when someone's critiquing you, whether it be a boss, a mentor, etc., they're doing it because they want you to be better at whatever they're critiquing you about. So if someone critiques you as you're caddying for them or whatever, if you do it correctly and you correct it, you're most likely going to get requested the next time that person has a big tournament or an event or something. So sometimes don't walk away from that round saying like, man, I can't believe that man or woman was so mean to me, or everything I did was wrong. It could be, the fact that they like you, right? Like when I have a caddy and I don't like them, if they do something wrong, I just ignore them, right? Like I don't spend any time with them. I just walk away as quickly as possible, right? So being critiqued is not a bad thing. And it could be the start of the mentorship that you need moving forward.
Mark, one of the things I was going to say is that, so I have 2 daughters that are, one is a senior in college and one is a sophomore in college. And I remember as they were a little bit younger, trying to give them advice on certain things. And you know how that goes over when you're a parent, because all your kids hear at that point is blah, 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 blah. So at that, I figured out that it was a lot more effective to, maybe point out a mentor to them that they could learn about. And I would give little bits and pieces to that mentor, and it worked great. So if you're getting advice from your parents at some point about, hey, maybe you ought to go meet this person or meet that person, I would not listen to the blah, blah, blah that comes out, but I would take their advice. And I would really, if you get even your parents or someone that says to you, hey, go meet this person, they probably know what they're doing, and they're probably setting you up. So I would absolutely positively take that advice. And once you get that advice, you go back to the person that gave you the introduction and make sure you thank them. Make sure you send them a text, make sure you send them a written card, because more than likely that will be some of the best advice you get in life.
Michael, I was really struck by something you said the other day about the gratitude piece and the thanking piece. If you could share some of your thoughts around that and what you learned, I thought it was a brilliant example.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I might have said this, but I think it was sort of universally echoed in our group. The point about the little things, and that when you have a crack, when the door is this far open in a mentoring relationship, be very grateful. And I think that the word that we all used, even in addition to grateful, is be grateful and use every opportunity to be impressive. So what does that mean? Let's unpack that a little bit. So be grateful. John just mentioned about writing a thank you note to anyone. So if I could give one bit of advice to all of you, is that in the next 5 years or 10 years, as you're building your career, every time that someone does something for you, if you could build that habit, write a thank you note. There's such a difference between the reception of a thank you note and a text or an email. It'll take you years perhaps to recognize that, but it's an undeniable truth. So do those little things. The other thing is that when we say be impressive, you know, if somebody says to you, and I'll give you an example, we're interviewing right now at my company and we're down to a few candidates. And in the first interview, this is for like a junior analyst trader type position. And the first one of the candidates that's made it through the first round asked, well, what books should I read? What do you think? And my chief investment officer gave them 2 investment books. And by the time of the second interview, that book was read. Both books have been read. And so now, again, I'm drawing that parallel, even though it's not really mentorship, but think about, I'm talking about it on this call right now, aren't I? I mean, think about how memorable that is. So as you have every opportunity, if someone that you're, whether it's a family member or an adult or a mentor via caddying, if they tell you a book, a podcast, a movie, follow through on things, do things, right? Do those little things, whether it's thanking them or just following through on advice they give. The benefit of that is beyond what you can recognize, because anyone who wants to be a mentor, anyone who's willing to be a mentor, the best way to get real help from them is to show them, like John said earlier, that you care, right? Show them that you care and that you're the kind of person that takes the extra step. And if you take the extra step, it means you're going to take the extra step in your career and everything else. So again, I'll let others chime in, but that was one mark we universally sort of talked about in our pre-call for this session.
No, it really struck me, and it made me think of, you know, a lady I worked with. She had received a thank you note from one of the exec members of Exelon, actually, and she kept it in her drawer. And when she was telling me about the thank you note and what it said, her eyes were welling up, and she said that note meant so much to me. So the impact of things like that it's you can't imagine sometimes for some people what that can do for them. So I think it's a brilliant piece there. I think it's a wonderful piece about this whole piece about, you know, being impressive. You know, Megan talked about, you know, being compelling, and I think that's a key part, and I think that's a key thread. And I guess for all the scholars, to be thinking about, how can I stand out? How can I distinguish myself? How can I be really intentional about everything I'm doing? Because I think you said something the other day, Billy, that stayed with me, was about, you know, every time you're meeting someone, you are literally going into bat. So you're on show all the time. So I think there's something there about being that purposeful about everything you do, because you're always creating a perception in people's minds. So if we know that, great. What choices am I making around that? I think that's a wonderful point about the impressive. Anything else from anyone else about this whole theme of gratitude, about being impressive? Anything there? Any other examples from anyone?
Mark, can I just chime in about something real quick? I was talking with one of our trustees the other day, and you know, he had grown up caddying, and he talked a great deal about how he hopes our scholars and our caddies understand and really reflect on all that they're learning while they're caddying. You know, because sometimes they don't recognize the parallels between what they're learning as they caddy for individuals and how they're carrying themselves, and how that can, you know, very easily be used as the foundation for so many things they're going to be doing. Have already been using it and maybe not even knowing it, but certainly when they understand better these skills, and that they'll be able to utilize them throughout their career. And you know, I think if all of you reflect back on the first time you caddied and the nervousness you felt, and perhaps you were a golfer before you caddied, but maybe you weren't. Maybe you were a caddy without knowing anything about golf. You had to learn that skill set, and over time you became more and more confident in being a good caddy. So many things are just like that in life. There's a learning curve. There's a period of time where you're going to have some insecurities, and over time you're going to learn those skills, and people along the way are going to teach them to you. They're going to give you feedback, as Billy Ruby just talked about. So I think that if you really, you know, I've had some caddies tell me that they keep a journal about the different loops and the different people they meet, so that they can look back on the last couple of years and read some of those journal entries to, you know, rounds that they'd love to forget and rounds that they would love to celebrate. But when looking back, they're going to find some incredible life lessons. And these life lessons really are going to help you identify your mentors, keep your mentors, thank your mentors, start to resemble your mentors, be successful in the first, you know, early stages of your career, and continue to build those building blocks. So caddying is just a great way, really reflecting on all that you're doing out there and the relationships you are having, because it's a great start. So I just wanted to make that point, Mark. Thank you.
That's a great point. And I think that's one of the things that struck me when we spoke the other day, and we were thinking about the transferable skills piece, because it strikes me that there are so many of the skills are transferable. Like, you need to be ambitious, you need to have courage, you need to be proactive, you need to think about how you show up, you need to be, I would imagine, intuitive and reading that kind of reading the room when you're with someone. When's a good moment to ask a question? When's a good moment to maybe seek advice versus not, and being sensitive to that. I mean, and there's a whole range of different skills. So it really, I was amazed. I've never been a caddy. I'm the worst golfer in the world. So sadly, you know, I've never joined. You can't just turn up in a relationship and expect someone to just do and feed you all the information. I think, Kate, you mentioned a piece of something. Some, I just wonder if you care about. Oh.
Mark, I missed some of that question.
So sorry. It was about the relationships, and you can't just turn up and expect your mentor.
Hey, Kate, I think he was mentioning the point you made in the previous call that we had, where you were saying that the expectations that you should have for your mentor, and Megan mentioned it before, saying, you know, I think that, you know, sometimes your mentor is not going to get you an interview, not going to get you, you know, exactly what you want right out of the gate, but they can help you plan to get to that point. And you mentioned it on the pre-call, if you could just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah. I guess part of, I think, where I was kind of going is, I've always found it the most successful when I've been in a mentor as a mentee to do work before I get to the conversation. So if I'm bringing some of the challenges I'm having to the conversation, and if I'm also bringing some of the solutions that I've been thinking about, or some of the work that I've already done on the program or on my problem, then I find that there's more for that mentor to really dig into with me. And then likewise, as we discuss those things, and this mentor perhaps gives me some general ways to think about things or some advice or whatnot, I find when I come back, if I have acted on that advice or tried it out or whatever else, we can easily get to even the next level. So I think part of it is the more you do use some of kind of what the mentor is advising or really make use of it, you kind of take it to the next level. And I also find that the mentor, it's very gratifying to a mentor when you have taken some steps and you have used their advice and had successes or failures, to really see that their advice is going somewhere. And it makes, I think the mentor really enjoys helping and is that much more motivated to be a help. So, so it's, you know, even though you're trying things on your own, you got to be prepared to listen and to get kind of criticism and new directions and whatnot. But the more work you do in it, the more successful that relationship is.
Fantastic. Thank you. Am I back? Because I think my connection went briefly.
Yep,
Yeah, Mark, you are loud and clear now.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And I guess this kind of links with the two-way piece as well. And I just wonder if I could ask the panel to share any thoughts about, you know, this bi-directional piece. What can one do to make that relationship as two-way as possible?
I think that our times are changing so quickly. And what I have noticed about a lot of recent conversations that I've had is that there's a renewed sense of appreciation that I think a lot of experienced professionals have for insight into how this next generation is navigating the working world and navigating the use of technology and their expectations. And it's very nice to be able to engage in a conversation about your peers and how your peers are thinking and what your peers are valuing. And even be able to create, you know, a really nice dialogue around kind of like, all right, well, what were you valuing about your work-life balance when you were in my shoes? And so just being able to share some of those insights from a separate generation, not to say all mentors are from a different generation. I think that there are definitely some that will be closer than others, but when that happens, I think that that's one of the things that you can bring to the relationship.
Excellent. Thank you. And I suppose there's a piece about the kind of lifelong journey. You know, we talked about, you know, a mentor is not just for early stage career advice. You know, I was struck by Warren Buffett I was reading about recently. Warren Buffett is 87. He has a mentor that is 89. You know, so he still has a mentor. And I read somewhere that Steve Jobs was mentoring Mark Zuckerberg. You know, he had already set up Facebook. Facebook was already working, but they had conversations around how he could take it to the next level. So I'm curious around from the panel about thinking about this lifelong mentoring piece. You know, what your thoughts are around that.
So I still have the same mentor that I had when I was, you know, leaving college. And one of the things that I get the most from it now is that he reminds me of the person that I was when I was 16 or 17, because that is when you're most pure, right? And you have, you know, an approach to life that isn't driven by money, that isn't driven by power or, you know, anything. So you end up making better decisions when you connect with that person, because he will say to me, you know, you didn't care about this in 2009, but now you do because you have a little bit of money, or you have an apartment in New York, or you have whatever the case may be. You know, your true happiness is the person you were when you were 16 most of the time, right? So go back to that person and make decisions based on that, because, you know, that's what makes a great mentor also, is that sometimes the advice isn't necessarily like getting you your next job. It's making you happy, which is a lot of times a lot harder when you're older than when you're younger, when you have responsibility and bills and, you know, people asking you for things like caddies who need mentors, right? So it's good to remind you of the person that you were, and that's something a lifelong mentor can give you.
Fantastic. And I guess I'm just aware of time, but there are a couple of other areas I would like to just touch on. I mean, I think you started to touch on it there, Billy, is, you know, if you've had fantastic experience from mentors, what is your advice about the giving back part? How do you repay that, whether it's to that mentor or whether more broadly?
You know, through the process of...
So Mark, I'll handle that one. So I had a very unique situation. My father and another guy, Frank, started a business. They were Air Force pilots in 1964. They came back from England here to the United States, opened an investment firm. And my father knew that his partner was just a special guy. So as a young person, I was 7 years old working on this farm out in Chalfont with him, cutting grass, for many, many years. Make a long story short, my father died when I was a junior at Bucknell. And ultimately I joined the firm, with his business partner. And he was a lifelong mentor to me. And ultimately he passed away a couple years ago at age 87. And he opened a charitable foundation, and that charitable foundation is what contributes to Platt. But the thing that was so remarkable about my relationship with him was he never gave me answers. He always made me come up with the solutions, and he would just say, "Yep, sounds good." I would always look for answers. He'd never give them to me. And I think that when you have a lifelong mentor like I was so fortunate to have, it really taught me how to be a good mentor. And so I really cherish those moments where he was being my mentor, wasn't really telling me. I didn't really recognize that was really happening until later on in life, but it gave me the ability to be an awesome, in my opinion, mentor. And it goes back to that caring. And it takes a lot of effort to be a good mentor, because you have to care, you have to respond, you have to listen, and you have to give advice sometimes when it's not really warranted. So it's something that it's a big effort, but it really is so gratifying for me.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. Thank you. I'm just aware of time, everyone, and I know we're going to have to wrap soon, and I know there are so many other stories you all have that we could share this evening, but I would like us all just to think about, one piece of advice that you would like to give the scholars. Either this is an absolute you must do, or an absolute no-no in terms of what you must not do, be aware of when it comes to mentorship. Anyone like to kick us off? Michael.
Sure. All right. Lucky me.
Lucky you.
So the absolute to do, I think, would be to focus on the little things. That was one of the things we said before.
Yeah.
But I think just, throughout life, just always have a growth mindset, right? Just always have the mindset of continuous self-improvement. And people will see that. They'll see that when you're 20 and 21 as a caddy. They'll see it as you develop. As Billy said, what you do at 22 may not be anything remotely close to what you end up doing for your career. And those people that you used to caddy with may end up helping, or caddy for, may end up helping you at a later point. But only if you're a person that they look and you inspire them. You inspire them with your mindset. You inspire them with your desire to continue to be better every single day. And I think that's really the biggest thing. I have to say, when we had that theme of be impressive, I think every single one of the caddies that decided to spend this and invest this time on the call, this was impressive. We notice your names. We can see on my screen, it's David Young and David Stewart, and I can see them right here. So you guys have all made an impression on us. It's impressive that you took the time to be here, and that counts for something. It really does. And you should be proud of being that group that stood out and took this time. So that's mine.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great point.
Mark, I would say one thing as it relates to, don't be afraid. You're going to be introduced to a lot of really impressive people, impressive golfers, CEOs of this, CEOs of that. Take the time. They want to give back. If you try to call someone on the phone and they don't answer the first time, call again, send a thank you note, send a text, but be persistent and don't be worried about what people think. Just show who you are, show that you care, and make an impact, and important people will respond. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. Great point. Who else would like to share?
I'll just jump in and kind of emphasize that theme of just, try some things out that you wouldn't have normally tried, and listen to what the mentors are saying, try some things, hold yourself accountable to that, because I think it's a great time for you to kind of explore different ways of thinking about things, different types of things that you might actually do. And as you try some of those things out and practice some of these skills, they'll just become much more natural and be so much more easy to continue on this way. So the accountability is a big thing, I think.
Yeah, and I love that. And pushing yourself outside the comfort zone as well, isn't it? To try and grow. Brilliant. Thank you, Kate. Who else? Billy or Megan, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think be open-minded, like be willing to change your mind, be willing to be wrong, and be willing to accept the fact that you may have chose your major when you were 17 years old and you have no idea what you want to do when you're 25, right? Like, you know, be okay with changing everything about your life, and be okay with your mentor helping you do that, and changing everything about the way you approach things, etc. Because a lot of times, like, people get locked into ideas, and it's very dangerous. You know, you need difference of opinion. You need people to give you the opposite side of everything, right? And regardless of the topic, people on both sides of every argument have valid, good points. So always be able to be open enough to listen to the other side and understand it, and at least see their point of view, because you could learn something from that.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Billy. Great point. And Megan, final thoughts and bit of advice for our scholars?
Sure. You know, mine's similar to Billy's, but I think that fostering the relationship is just very important. Not, you know, ensuring that you're invested in the relationship. Something that John just said really resonated with me. Ask them questions. The way to give back to that relationship, be interested in them and ask them questions, because there are a lot of mentors out there who are going to get so much out of their conversation with you because they're going to be thinking things through themselves. So ask them questions, challenge them, help them think through why they made the decisions they made. And I think that you'll both walk away with a lot to think about. So thank you. This was great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm aware of time and we're almost out of time, but I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone on the panel for your thoughts, and a huge thank you to the scholars for attending. I think Michael hit the nail on the head when he said, you know, it is impressive, and it is, you know, a real commitment to make the time to attend a webinar like this. And I personally think it's a fantastic initiative that Platt are running with the Empower program. And I just want to, from my side, just wish you all the very, very best with that program, and wish you all the success. And good luck with everything, and thank you. And I'm going to hand over to Tina now, who's going to wrap up for us.
Thank you so much. So obviously the theme was said many times, you know, gratitude. And I certainly know that I am feeling quite grateful for everybody's time, expertise, to the scholars, to the panelists, to those who helped organize today, certainly to our trustees for recognizing that this is a good direction for us to go in, and certainly to, you know, our donors that support us. So just so grateful, and thank you for sharing your stories and your insights. I want to just make a couple points to our scholars, because you took the time to be here, and very often we get notes from all of you, many of you, most of you, saying thank you for what we're doing to help you afford a college education. And very often in your notes, you ask us what you can do to help. And we now have a more concrete response. You know, we often tell you, say thank you to your donors, and when you become, you know, a successful individual someday and you have some discretionary income, give back to the trust. But now we have more, and we have something you can do right now, which is to share your stories with us. Lindsay is the Director of Development, and many of the folks over at the Goff office, you know, they can help us, you know, spread the word in terms of what you're doing, what you're experiencing, your successes, your failures. You know, this is not an easy year. You know, we have graduates who are struggling to find a job. There's so many things that are happening, and our donors want to know who you are. And if we can tell your stories, it's going to help us raise more money. And we know that so many of the things that you're doing are worth sharing. So don't hesitate. Please don't hesitate to share those stories, and let us know what's going on in your lives. And we will do the very best to utilize those experiences so our donors get to know how special and unique you really are. And also send back the survey and fill out the homework assignment. Those practical things are also incredibly important.
Very short.
What's that?
It's very short, 2 to 3
Yes.
minutes, guys.
Yeah. And that will also really help us formalize our launch of this mentor and mentee program, which will be happening in the next few months in the early stages of 2021. So I think with that, again, just thank you to everybody and appreciate your time. And we're just excited to continue to develop the Empower program, and hopefully it's going to bring a lot of value to your lives. And thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks to everybody for coming on. We will follow up. If you have questions, we'll follow up and send them out. But I just want to thank all of our panelists and participants. This was really awesome. Thank you for everybody for joining us tonight, and be safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.